light these chalices for eyes that see miracles in mundane moments. May these flames remind us that gratitude grows not through waiting for extraordinary gifts, but through noticing the ordinary blessings that surround us daily. Amen. I had a friend in high school named Scott. We ended up going to the same college and living in the same dorm room. And I will admit that we were not necessarily completely compatible in those days. He came from a family with a good deal of money, and I came from poverty. He was very disciplined, and I'm going to be honest, I was a bit of a wild child. He had to work very hard for every grade, and I will also admit that school came easy for me. He actually stole my girlfriend the summer between senior year and freshman year while I was away at basic training in the National Guard. And that was probably the beginning of the fracture of our friendship, but we stayed mostly together through college. At the end of our sophomore year, I set off a bomb in our dorm room, destroying his grandfather's chest that he had built for him. And there was a perfectly good explanation for that. We can talk about that later. But Scott was livid because I had broken something that meant something to him. And that got me kicked out of the dorms, and we kind of went our separate ways. But a year later, one of the boys I had got an apartment with dropped out of school, and Scott ended up taking the room. So we were living together again. And I will also admit that by that point in my college career, my partying had gotten a little out of control. And by the time graduation came, I think you could just say that we went our separate ways and never looked back. Then when Facebook came along a decade or so later, we became friends, but we never actually exchanged a word. I watched him get married, I watched his children be born, and I watched him raise his kids. He became a police officer, and he married a beloved school principal who clearly is one of those people that the entire school just absolutely adored. They were living the perfect cookie-cutter life, and I was watching it from afar. But then she got cancer, and I watched that journey unfold, and then she passed away, leaving my old friend a widow by 40 with 2 kids on the cusp of their teenage years. And still, I never reached out. I just watched it from afar. I justified this by telling myself that a huge community of support was already around my friend, and he didn't need my pity. And skipping that opportunity for reconnection ate at me for the next decade. Each time I saw a new post for him, each time I watched he posted something that showed he was still alive, he was still taking the next step, his kids were still there. I never reached out. Time passes, and I had begun to try to become a more respectable member of society. And I was just beginning my journey as a Unitarian Universalist. For perhaps the first time in my life, I had begun to challenge the stories I had created about myself, both the positive ones and the negatives, and was trying to live a life of greater intention. On September 14th of this year, I received a text from my old friend. It had been 30 or more years. The earth-shattering news that prompted this text was epic. He had just learned that Taco Bell was bringing back a menu item that we used to get together late night at the drive-thru. That was it. That was it. And that led to a call and a beautiful reconnection filled with fun stories and real stories of our lives that had passed since the last time we had connected. This was the piece that touched me the most and led me to think that this story should be shared here. We're now about 6 months into our reconnection, and after watching a recording of one of my sermons, he sends me another text out of the blue. He said, "I was reminded of when we first met. I was a new kid in school, starting in a new high school among hundreds of kids that all grew up together. You know those small towns. You got your cliques, right? And I was an outsider. And yet you and John and Ed and others welcomed me in. And if I didn't say it then, I'm saying it now. Thank you for that." That short little text really moved me. I was reminded of how unaware we truly are of the impact that our actions can have on another's life. And it would be easy for me to go back and rewrite the story and say that I was anything other than a self-absorbed teenage boy. But somewhere in that mix, there must have been some behaviors and choices that I took that helped a stranger to feel welcomed. And all I can say for sure is that acknowledgement felt really good. It probably felt good because it made tangible something that I've always just taken as an article of faith. The belief that our choices and our actions have consequences well beyond that which we are aware. That doing something nice or helpful, even something small and seemingly untangible, creates the potentials for ripples of positive outcomes, the results of which we will probably never be aware of. And that's really kind of a shame when you think about it. We put all this effort into doing the right things, trying to live a decent life, but often the only messages we get back from the world are the places where we've come up just a little bit short. Or worse, we get no feedback at all. I've got another example of this. There was an older gentleman at my home congregation. He was one of the people that had heeded Dr. King's call and was one of the white allies that marched over the Edmund Pettus Bridge back in the Civil Rights Day. He had dedicated his entire life to social justice causes. He was beloved by those that knew him, but as so often happens, age-related struggles had begun to pull him away from his community connections. I visited him in hospice while I was in seminary. He told me that he had made a decision that he wanted to have his celebration of life before he passed away, so that he could actually get the benefit of any nice things folks might have to say about him. So that's what we did. Pictures were gathered like you do, but he was positioned near the front of the church, and he said a few words, and then a series of folks whom he had positively impacted over the course of his 80 years or so came forward and shared their heartfelt thanks in front of the 100 or so friends and family that had gathered for this event. Now, I've been to a bunch of life celebrations. We just had one recently here that was beautiful. But I have to say that was the one that felt the most alive to me. And if I recall correctly, his health took a positive turn after that day, and he ended up living many more months than the doctors had initially thought he could. And to this day, I'm convinced that it was the positive energy that was pointed in his direction that day that boosted his life force beyond what the doctors had been able to do with just medicine. Why are we so resistant to receiving praise for the good things that we do in this life? Why do we hesitate to reach out to someone when it feels like a little bit too much time has passed? Why are we so worried about being a bother? Or what is it that we are doing that could be more important than reconnecting with old friends when they learn that they might be having a struggle? This morning, in a very small way, but maybe it's not small, we're going to collectively attempt to make love a little bit more visible in this world. I'd like to invite each of you to begin thinking back over your life and recall a time when the effort someone made to do something. They made a choice, they said a thing, they took an action, whatever, where the impact of that action on you was far more profound than the person who took that action could ever know. So the first thing we're going to do is take some time to reflect upon who is someone in our lives that perhaps unknowingly has given us one of these simple gifts. And in just a moment, we're going to take a moment to actually write them a thank you card. I'm going to ask the ushers to begin handing out thank you cards and writing utensils. And I want you to really think about who would you send a card to. This is our time. This is the moment. There's nothing else going on in the world. We're here. You're stuck. What else better could we do than spread a little bit of love in the world? So the ushers are going to start to pass those out while you begin to think about who you might write a thank you to. We're going to have some beautiful music to help calm our minds and let the words flow. And we'll take about 5 minutes to do this. And if you're joining us from home, just grab a piece of paper and a pen. Or start drafting an email to somebody. We want to make sure that you're included as well. Maybe it's a teacher whose approach to learning had a profound impact on how you saw the world. Maybe it's a family member that helped you keep everything together when your world was falling apart. Maybe it's someone in this room that covered for you when you signed up for something, but then life said, nope, I'm sorry, you're going to have to be dealing with this one instead. Maybe it was somebody that just offered you a welcoming smile at the door. Maybe it's someone that sent you away when that's what you actually needed. Take a few minutes to think about who you would like to formally express some gratitude towards. And once you've determined who that is, begin to write a heartfelt little note of thanks to them. Don't worry if you don't have that address. We'll deal with the logistics once you are done. We're going to take about 5 minutes for this while Tracy fills the space with some music. Thank you. But for now, how was that? How did that feel? For some, I know that sending little notes of thanks might be something that you already do consistently, so we got another opportunity to do it today. For others, this may have felt like a reminder of a quaint tradition from days gone by. How was it to take a moment to think back on your life and try to find a person that was worthy of your thanks that you know you hadn't yet expressed? I wonder if anyone was surprised by whose name appeared in that silence. Our subconscious minds are actually awesome. Any outstanding balances are all tucked away in there, just waiting for a quiet moment and an invitation to appear. And sometimes I think that's really all Sunday mornings are for. Just taking an intentional moment out of the distractions of the day and the week to just invite our minds to share what it has been holding for us. Just waiting till we created enough space to invite our hearts to share its important lessons. This month's Soul Matters theme is gratitude, which is closely tied to our recently adopted UU value of generosity. That value says we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. It goes on to say we covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Folks ask me all the time, is you really a faith? What do you believe? And how do you practice this faith? I don't get it. I think today's exercise is an example of all of this. Cultivating a spirit of gratitude and hope. Today we intentionally carved out a bit of space to recognize and affirm someone else's past kindness. The value statement goes on to say that we covenant, we promise to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Freely share. How much does it cost to think of and share an overdue thank you? 5 minutes? How often do we actually stop to do this? What if we just made gratitude and giving thanks one of our consistent spiritual practices? What if, imagine this, what if every single person in this room committed to spend 5 minutes, tiny, every single day for a whole year doing just what we took time to do this morning? Intentionally carving out 5 minutes from doom scrolling or playing a game on our phones or whatever we're doing to distract ourselves to just send out a little bit of extra positivity into the world. What if we all committed to sending thank you notes as one of our simple spiritual practices? 100 people, 365 days, 1 year from now, there will have been 36,500 little notes of thanks received by people who, for whatever reason, for a however large or smaller gesture, chose to do something that benefited somebody else. 36,000 little seeds spread around the world. That is what cultivating a spirit of gratitude and hope looks like. And that is what the promise of this faith looks like. It's in your hands. When life looks bleak and all we see on the news is bad, it takes intention to balance that out, to help the ones we love balance things out. Is Unitarian Universalism really a faith? What do you believe? I believe that the actions I take have the potential to positively impact the world. And how do we practice this faith? We practice this faith by intentionally changing habits that aren't expanding positive energy in the world with ones that are. This faith is not about what happens here on Sunday mornings. It's about taking what we consider here and then bringing those intentions out into the world. It's about becoming clear about what we value and then making intentional choices to help to spread that spirit of those values into the wider world. I am grateful for each and every person that is gathered here in this room. And whether you have the capacity to give or have nothing to offer back but a smile, I am grateful that you are here. I'm grateful that you have chosen this faith tradition as part of your spiritual path. And I am grateful for all that you do to try to help make our world a kinder, more loving, and safer place to be. You are each living your lives with an intention to be the best person you can be. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Offering thanks is a prayer. Amen. Our closing words are from The Honorable Harvest by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you, so that you may take care of them. Never take more than half, leave some for others. Give thanks for what you have been given. Give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken, and sustain the ones who sustain you. All right, before I start giving instructions on what we might do with those thank you cards, one little note. Right after 15 minutes after service, get coffee, get a snack. We are offering one of our newer offerings, which is for new visitors specifically. We're offering classes where you get to meet some of the different people that do some of the different things in this congregation. So today we're going to talk about pastoral care that we do, and we're also going to talk about social action. So you get to meet the folks that are involved in that and ask questions and learn a little bit more about what we do. And that class is open up to anyone. It'd be about a half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And we do have childcare available. So come join us if you just want to learn a little bit more about that. Go forth, give thanks, share, make gratitude a spiritual practice. It really is the antidote to all that is going on in this world. Go in peace. Enjoy this day.